Hey guys, Mike Wang here, back with another video on stocks. Today I'm going to go over two of the biggest institutional players and their portfolios. I'm a huge believer of standing on the shoulder of giants and learning from mentors, so if you can stick around until the end of this video, it'll definitely give you some insight and inspiration for your own investments as well. In case you're new to my channel and new to investing, Warren Buffett is the chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway and once the richest man on earth. Ray Dalio, who I'll discuss later in this video, is the CIO and co-chairman of Bridgewater Associates, and this is the biggest hedge fund in the world. This video is based on Form 13F for the third quarter of this year. All institutional investment managers with over $100 million in assets are obliged to fill this form. So as this report is updated every quarter, we can see what the big boys are buying and selling. The data in this video is from the third quarter report that was issued on the 15th of November. So keep in mind that this could be different from current data. So before we begin, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe for the latest content. Let's first begin by looking at Warren Buffett's top 10 picks. As you can see, Buffett's top 10 picks consist 87% of the entire portfolio. So looking at these stocks on the list will suffice. We can see that Apple is number 1 on the list, covering 47.8% of Buffett's entire portfolio. But as you can see from the change in percentage, Buffett actually sold 3% of the Apple stocks he owned. Buffett started buying Apple shares in the first quarter of 2016, and it seems like he sold some recently just to balance it out in his overall portfolio. You can see that the previous percentage was at 44.2%, and despite him selling 3% of his shares, the current percentage sits at 47.8% due to the price having increased. Another thing we can notice is that Buffett continues to sell his bank shares. Bank of America is the only company he additionally bought, and he's been heavily selling his other bank stocks such as Wells Fargo and JP Morgan, as we'll see on the other side. From this, we can guess that Buffett thinks holding bank stocks involves huge opportunity costs. So moving on to Buffett's main trades, he sold 95% of the JP Morgan stocks he had. What we can also notice is that Buffett has started buying pharma stocks, marked in the blue rows. Of course, each of these stocks all constitute less than 1% of his entire portfolio, which means that he's just gaining exposure to these stocks. It's very likely that he might add more to his existing position in the future. If we look at the charts, we can see that while the Nasdaq rose up 44%, these pharma stocks didn't go up as much. ABBV went up by 25%, PFE by 15%, BMY by 7%, and MRK actually fell by 1%. But overall, Buffett bought well when these stocks were relatively undervalued, and before the breakout took place as well. Also, what's worth noting here is that the dividends are pretty high for these stocks. ABBV pays 4.9% annually, PFE 3.8%, BMY 2.9%, and MRK pays 3.2% in annual dividends. We can also see that Buffett bought some additional GM stocks, and these now cover a little over 1% of Buffett's entire portfolio. American automotive manufacturers took a hit this year and had to stop paying dividends. Buffett bought more shares while the stock consolidated, and we can see that it has been on a clear uptrend ever since November, especially with hopes of GM and Ford paying dividends again. Last quarter, Buffett bought Barrick Gold, which is a company that mines gold and copper. We can see that Buffett made a long swing trade here as he sold half of his holdings after 3 months. What's also worth noting is that Buffett also sold all of his Costco shares while Dalio bought more. So to summarize Buffett's investments and trades for the third quarter of 2020, he sold some Apple stocks to balance out his portfolio. He also started exposing himself to pharma stocks by opening up small positions. And lastly, he sold all his Costco stocks and continues to slowly sell his bank stocks as well. Before we move on to what Ray Dalio has been buying and selling, if you've made it to this point of the video, please don't forget to like this video. YouTube is just a side project I do, and your feedback really motivates me to make more videos like these. Also, if you want to see more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe as well. Moving on, let's take a look at Ray Dalio's top 10. Dalio's hedge fund uses a specific investment strategy that's known as the all-weather strategy, in which they basically diversify among various assets and minimize their maximum drawdown. So So instead of buying shares of a company like Buffett does, Dalio buys a lot of exchange traded funds or ETFs. In case you don't know what ETFs are, it's essentially a basket of securities that you can trade like a stock. I'll do another video on ETFs for the future, so stay tuned for that as well. We can first notice that Dalio has decreased his position on ETFs regarding the US stock market, as he sold 21% of his SPY holdings and 63% of his IVV holdings, which are both ETFs for the S&P 500. In contrast, we can see that he actually slightly increased his positions on emerging markets, buying more VMIX, EEM, and IEMG, which are all emerging market ETFs. He has a decent position in gold as well, but hasn't increased or decreased his position size. What's interesting to note is how he now has individual stocks in his top 10 list. Dalio rarely buys individual stocks, but he now has Alibaba, Walmart, and Procter & Gamble on his list. As you can tell, these are stocks related to commerce and consumer staples. This is more evident when you take a look at Dalio's main trades. Overall, he started buying and increasing his position on commerce stocks. First, we can see that he increased his positions on Chinese commerce stocks like Alibaba, JD.com, and Pinduoduo, as well as American commerce and consumer staple stocks like Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Pepsi, and Costco. Unlike Buffett, Dalio increased his Costco shares by a whopping 10,046%. While Buffett sold 4 million shares, Dalio actually bought 220,000 shares. So it'll be interesting to see who made the better decision later in the future. Dalio also increased his Starbucks shares by 4,523%, with the stock covering 0.57% of his entire portfolio. Through this, we can clearly understand Ray Dalio's thought process and how he's pretty bullish on commerce and consumer staple stocks for both the US and China. So to summarize Dalio's investments and trades, we can see that he's more bullish on emerging markets rather than the US stock market. Instead of selling his S&P 500 ETF holdings, he's been buying more individual stocks lately, most of which are in the field of commerce and consumer staples. We've reached the end of this video, and I hope this was helpful. If you found this useful, please make sure to like the video and also subscribe for more content. Also, comment down below what types of videos you guys want to see. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys in the next video.